Do you have a cool idea for a series and you want your characters to be unforgettable and your story to really capture your audience? Well, my friend, you have come to the right place. Welcome, Scribes of the Extraordinary, and today we're going beyond entertainment and diving deeper into the craft of storytelling by analyzing book one of my favorite series, the Lunar Chronicles. Today we're going to be talking about Cinder and what makes her a very strong protagonist, primarily that she is a reluctant hero. Now, for those of you who have not read this series, I highly recommend checking it out. If you like fairy tale twists, if you like sci-fi, really like high stakes, coming of age stories, first love, this series is fantastic. As I said, it is one of my favorite book series. And I bring this up because we are going to be diving deep into this story, and in subsequent videos, we will be diving into the other books. So you have been warned, full spoiler territory. If you haven't read it, highly recommend reading it, but then come back and keep watching this video. So the first tip that you could take away from this is think about introducing your protagonist as a reluctant hero. Reluctant heroes are a character trope in a lot of YA fantasy. It is how it sounds. The hero is reluctant to go on the journey. They're reluctant to go on the quest. They're reluctant to take the throne. They're reluctant to step into power, whatever it is. The reason why reluctant heroes are so relatable is because responsibility is a lot. Responsibility can be very heavy. It can be scary. Doing something new can be incredibly intimidating. So introducing your character as a reluctant hero will help connect your audience to them. And that's exactly what Cinder is. She's a mechanic. She's fine being a mechanic. She doesn't want to be paid attention to anybody. And chapter 1, she gets the attention of the prince because he thinks she can solve a problem that nobody else can, which is a fantastic meet cute. Also, when I read that first chapter, I immediately wanted to turn it into a movie. I could picture it so vividly. So how can you incorporate a reluctant hero into your book? Well, show these small incremental steps of your hero accepting this new role. It doesn't have to be some massive transformation right off the bat. She's pulled into the draft to try to find a cure for the plague and finds out she's immune. That's weird. So she's taking these little steps and going, okay, why am I immune to this plague? What's going on? And as the story progresses, she doesn't go from mechanic to revolutionary in one moment. It takes 4 books for her to get to that point. She actually doesn't start really acting like a revolutionary till book 3, maybe towards the end of book 2. So it takes her a long time to step into this new role. So how can you incorporate small steps into your character's story so that they slowly accept this new position? So the second lesson you can take from Cinder's story is the theme of identity and of self-discovery. The story of Lunar Chronicles is absolutely a coming-of-age story. It is a story where Cinder is discovering who she is, and this self-discovery really shapes her character and the plot at large. In the first book, as I said, going full spoiler territory here, you have been warned for the final time. In the first book, she realizes she isn't just a cyborg that people will shun if they find out that she's not 100% human. She's also a lunar. The lunars are trying to take over the Earth, so now she's like, great, people hate me for what I look like, and now people will hate me if they find out who I am. Fantastic. What do I do with this? So now she's trying to keep that identity a secret, but also while trying to figure out what it means to be lunar and how that could be helpful or not. And her whole journey in the first book is her trying to figure out who she actually is. To Cinder's memory, she doesn't have a memory before the age of 11. So her whole journey is trying to figure out who she is, what can she do. Suddenly she's developing these little bits of ability, this little bit of magic, which is like, how does all this work? Now I keep getting roped in with the prince more because I keep going by the palace to work with the doctor to figure out why I'm immune and all of these different things. So she's slowly figuring out her identity. And this personal growth really feeds into the narrative as a whole. At the end of the book, Cinder finds out that she's the princess that should have died 10 or so years ago. That's why she doesn't have a memory, is because she wasn't supposed to be alive, and someone had kept her alive all that time, and she's the rightful heir to the throne of the evil queen who's trying to take over the world. Good luck. Have fun. Go be a revolutionary and a queen. And she's like, what? What do you mean? Okay, I guess I have to go down this path because I am being chased. I have multiple monarchs after me, and I am a hunted woman, and I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, sure, let's escape and embrace this new identity, because right now that's kind of my only choice. Theming your story of who your character is becoming can be very powerful. Another great example from a book I've recently been reading is in Mistborn. The main character, Vin, goes from not trusting anyone to learning that she can trust people. And this is a huge identity shift for her. But having these big identity shifts really help your audience connect with these characters, because after all, we go to stories to see how characters grow and change and mature over time. So here's a writing tip, especially if you're going to be writing a series for the first time. I always recommend plotting series out, but there's a video up over here about which writing style you have, whether you're more a discovery writer or more of an outliner. That video is going to be up here for your reference. But the writing tip for this section is going to be create a character journal. Track their growth, track their change. If you don't really know how they'll grow over the series, well, write a character journal of who they are now at the beginning of the series, and then write a character sketch of who you want them to be at the end of the series. Now, when I say journal, it doesn't have to be like your character is writing their own journal of their life. It can be something as simple as timid, tries to hide, doesn't want people to pay attention to courageous, willing to take risks, willing to do what's right despite the consequences. So those are two very different people, but those are both Cinder. She is very, very different in book 1 than she is in book 4, but the core of her character is the same. So do a character sketch, do a character journal of the beginning, of the end, and then of major changes throughout the story. Another thing that Cinder does very well in this book, and in the rest of the books as well, is overcoming societal prejudices, which is something you can absolutely incorporate into your own story. Now, in this world, Cinder faces societal norms and prejudices against the fact that she is a cyborg. She keeps herself hidden because cyborgs are seen as lesser. In the past, cyborgs would cause uprisings and be seen as dangerous because, well, they're part robot. They can add whatever extremities they want. So if you want your hand to be a hand, great. At the end of book 1, Cinder's hand becomes a screwdriver, and it becomes a dart gun, and it becomes all these different tools. And that is scary to a lot of people. Therefore, all of these laws were put on cyborgs and made them kind of slave-like in this society, in this world as a whole. So this in and of itself causes a lot of tension for Cinder. She can't let people know who she is, even as she's falling in love with Kai, and they have some very cute moments. She can't let him know that she's a cyborg because she fears that's instantly gonna change his perspective of her. And these book series cover a lot of different societal prejudices. The whole Lunars being able to emotionally and physically manipulate someone, causes a lot of people to hate them. But in later books, you realize not everybody is that way. Not everybody likes those gifts anyways, and it's usually only the highest society that takes advantage of them, and the people as a whole on Luna are oppressed. So you have all of these different societal problems that come up. And here's a writing tip for you. Use societal conflict to your advantage in your books or your screenplay, whatever it is that you want to write. The point is, a very big part of the young adult genre, especially the fantasy genre, is dealing with these big societal issues, is asking this big moral questions. Typically is dealing with some kind of government hierarchical system, whether taking it down, building it up, restructuring it, whatever. But a part of the YA genre is dealing with big topics and big issues. So if there are certain topics that you want to discuss in your book, feel free to do it. I will say, don't copy and paste the world's history into your novels, but you can absolutely take inspiration from topics that are important to you. The next thing that you can incorporate into your stories based off of Cinder is technology and humanity. Now, technology doesn't have to be actual technology. Technology can be magic system, technology can be fantastical beasts or whatever. But ultimately, it's the question of what is humanity and what makes someone human. Cinder balances the fact that she has all this technology as a part of her with her humanity. She becomes reliant on this technology. She becomes reliant on the fact that she can tell when people are lying. That becomes very helpful later on when she's able to see through glamours because she has the indicator in her brain whenever she sees or hears a lie. But because of this technology is so incorporated into her, I think she's like 46% cyborg or it's a very large percentage. It really starts this struggle of, am I a human or not? What makes you human or not? We get into this a little bit more in the second book, Scarlet, and I'll be talking about this more in the next video, of this whole humanity versus technology, animalistic issue. What makes a monster and what makes a man? So you can definitely add these kind of issues and add these kind of technological advances or magical advances into your story to not only add conflict to your story, because conflict is king when it comes to writing. There always needs to be something going on. But it can also give your characters something to use to problem solve. The fact that Cinder is a cyborg gets her out of a lot of dangerous situations. And because she has been a cyborg to her memory all of her life, she is so well integrated with it. She knows it so well that she uses it to, fix herself when things break, to fix ships when things break. She uses the technology within her that she knows so well to solve problems creatively. And that's the biggest thing when you're incorporating some kind of magic system or technology into your story, is not only do you want it to add, intrigue to your world, but you want it to be a tool for your characters to use. So a tip for you is explore technology that drives your narrative forward. How does your characters interact with technology or magic in your world? How does it affect them? How does it change them for the better, for worse? Every obstacle can always be turned into something positive. Remember this, even if your character has a flaw, to the whole world, Cinder being a cyborg is a huge flaw. But that's her strength, and she showcases it all the time throughout the series that it is a strength. So how can you incorporate technology or magic into your character's identity? How can you use it to showcase and contrast human emotions with technological limitations? How can you use technology or magic to enhance your character's journey. So the next section we're going to talk about is romantic relationships, because if you're writing YA, first love is a very big part of the genre. It's in every single YA book I've ever read. So it's something that you should get accustomed to and understanding. So a romantic relationship between Cinder and Kai is very fun, it's very bantery, it's very witty. It's great. She's hiding secrets. He's trying to ask her out, and she's like, no, you don't know what I am. You don't want to be associated with me, but I can't tell you this, so turning down the prince, which is hysterical. So you have these really fun, lighthearted moments, and that's something that romance does very well for YA stories or as a subplot for any story in general, is it adds levity, it adds lightness, because YA tends to deal with such massive topics, tends to be very revolutionary in ways. Romance adds those moments of pause. Think about a story like a heartbeat. If you just keep going up and up and up and up with the tension, well, that's very dangerous. If you remain the same level of tension the entire time, you're flatlining your story. You need to have highs, lows, moments of high tension, moments of peace. Higher tension, and it can slowly build up over time, build down over time, but the point is you need to have these back and forths, and that's what a romantic relationship can do for your story. So the relationship between Cinder and Kai, even though Cinder is hiding a lot from Kai because those social prejudices that we had previously discussed, when push comes to shove, they still trust each other. Because even though she was keeping secrets and he clearly couldn't tell her things because government secrets, there is this underlying sense of trust in that relationship that was formed. Even in books later, they both keep thinking back to their experiences with each other and trying to help one another. One big reason why Kai is so apt to trust Cinder is even though she was a cyborg, even though she was lunar, this all came out when she came to the ball to save his life. She knew that Lavanna was gunning her down, and yet she did so anyways. She didn't care that her identities would be exposed because it was the right thing to save him. And it was because of that selfless act that that hope was sparked in him, and they keep working together even though they are apart for 2 more books, coming back together and reuniting, and the initial blow up of, what are you doing? If I don't marry her, then the world is going to be destroyed. And she's like, what are you doing? If you marry her, she's going to kill you, and then she's going to take over the world. So even though they both have a lot on their plate, that relationship between the two of them breeds the sense of trust. And that's something that your characters are going to need, especially if you're doing YA in a bigger series. You're going to need to develop relationships in which your characters can trust other people, because there's a lot going on in your world. There's a lot going on in their story, and all the conflicts being thrown at them is heavy and burdensome, but those relationships will make it lighter. So a tip for writing relationships is when you write romantic subplots, make sure that they mirror or challenge your character's goals and add another layer of emotion. Remember, your character's going after a goal. They don't necessarily need to meet that goal at the end of the story. Cinder's goal is to just kind of be under the radar and figure out who she is. She didn't want people to know who she was. At the end of the story, hello, I am cyborg, I am lunar, and I am taking your throne now. So her goals didn't work. They changed over the course of the story, though. Why? Because of her relationship with Kai. The last big writing tip that you can take from the book Cinder is interconnected plot lines. If you are working on a series, you're going to have many characters that come up that become important characters. Even if they're side characters in the first book, they're going to be important later. Cress shows up for part of a chapter in book 1. Jason is there the entire time, and he doesn't become a major player until the last book and a little bit beforehand in book 3. So you are going to be interconnecting and interweaving all these stories together into one cohesive piece. Cinder is the protagonist of the entire series. Now, next video, when we talk about Scarlet, we're going to be talking about her as if she is the protagonist because of her story in Scarlet. She is. Cress is the same. Winter is the same, but ultimately, it's Cinder who's the protagonist of the entire story. So you can have primary stories focusing on other characters. Those are going to be your B plots, your C plots, that kind of thing. But have one overarching protagonist. Make sure that all your plot lines stay interconnected. What Cinder does in Cinder, what she does in Scarlet and Cress in Winter affect everybody else. So here's the tip for this section. Outline your series. Outline how all these important events connect to one another. For example, the book series that I am writing, I have following one character primarily, but there are several other things happening in the background that I need to keep track of in order to produce good, cohesive stories. Jason is a great example of this. You know who Jason is really in Cress, and in Winter. Jason and Winter are paired up, also Jason. I didn't think it was pronounced Jason at first because it's spelled Jacin, but that's me and the English language not being friends. But Jason is there the entire time, and I didn't realize that he was there the entire time until I reread the books, and I saw the description. I'm like, oh, this random guard is Jason. Oh, clever. So while you are writing and planning out your series, plot out the major story beats, plot out the major character arcs, and make sure that they interweave together. Well, if you like this video, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe, and let me know if you've read the Lunar Chronicles, who is your favorite character? There are so many good characters in these books. And I feel like every time I read it or go back to it, I'm like, oh, Cinder's my favorite. Now Scarlet's my favorite. Now Cress. But I really do think that Kai is my favorite character just because of the resilience that he has and the trust that he has. A little naive, sure. But I really appreciate that he's a character who doesn't have to throw a punch in order to still fight. Another little side tangent about this series, if you haven't read it, the cast of characters is incredible. All these characters are strong, but they have different strengths. Cinder is very good with mechanics and technology, and she can deal with herself in a fight. Scarlet, who we'll be talking about next video, is a pretty good fighter. She carries around a pistol the whole time. But Winter and Cress? I think Cress deals with a weapon in the series once, and that's because she's forced to and doesn't want to. But you have all these different characters with different strengths and different weaknesses, and it doesn't showcase that just because you are an untrained girl in fighting, such as Cress and Winter, that you can't still fight in your own ways. So that's why I really like the character of Kai, because he's one of the few characters that, he fights in his own way. But what about you? Who is your favorite character in the Lunar Chronicles? My Scribe of the Extraordinary, that's all I have for you today. I look forward to our next encounter as we continue our journey of going beyond entertainment, one step at a time.